Since upturning a presidential election is nearly impossible and has never happened in Nigeria's political history, it is almost certain that the ruling APC's Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be sworn in on 29th May, and he will in turn swear in the National Assembly members in June. All eyes now are on the legislative arm of government, so the battle about its potential leadership has also shifted there, albeit covertly, or perhaps openly now. Even as underground horse trading is ongoing, there should be an interplay of issues for consideration in the choice of National Assembly leaders with the hope that the mistakes of the past will be avoided. Part of the problem in the past was the inability of all stakeholders to build a consensus around the candidates that eventually emerged. Such ugly development also created banana peels for those leaders. And those scenarios are also precipitated on ending conflicts of interest with far-reaching implications on putting together of legislation for the good of the country. Let's welcome you back to our round of political discourse on Alive Television. Welcome to Politics Alive, everyone. I am Olubenga George. When I return from this break, I will be joined by my guest, with whom we will look together into building the build-up of the 10th National Assembly. Welcome to the program. Welcome back. Joining me now to have conversations around the intricacies of the 10th Assembly and the incoming administration of President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I have been joined by the Assistant Secretary General of the International Society of Diplomats, Africa Affairs, right here in the studio. Of course, his name is Dr. Tunji Ashaolu. It's good to have you join me, Doctor.
Thank you, Mr. Benga, for having me.
And it's a privilege to have you at this very strategic time of Nigeria's future, especially when we begin to think about the relationship, between Nigeria's politics and the contribution of the international community at the moment. And that's where I'd really like to, jump into this conversation with our happy holidays, by the way. I know it's Workers' Day and everyone is in the relaxation mode, but you chose to come out here and maybe celebrate with Nigerians.
Yeah, I think all of us are supposed to be enjoying this day. We work all through the years, and to the May Day is specifically for all workers to enjoy the day, but here we are. I think we have to move on.
It's a calling.
It's part of the commitment to the duty.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Tunji. So tell us, especially looking at it from the angle of the international community, everybody is anxious and anticipating a government, the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, to wind up. Even though it has already begun the process, and then by the 29th of May, have the administration of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu coming to become the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is in the case where no other court injunctions or where no other judgment whatsoever stands in the way. Even though, like many pundits have said, that is very unlikely. But of course, we are under the law and anything can happen. But I want to get your view, talking about the view of the international community. We have seen the presidents of different nations of the world, congratulate the president-elect. And a careless, or maybe not careless, a conversation I had, some time ago, talked about, the welcoming of a new president to Nigeria. And they say it is a reflection of the fact that many of these international countries and our international trading partners have become tired, have become weary, of dealing with the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari and all of the challenges that it comes with, and of course are willing to explore new opportunities with the administration of the incoming president-elect, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I'd like to get your view, as a diplomat who understands the international terrain.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think in all these scenarios, I know that one thing that is very key, and so it is Nigeria is a state, and it has a sovereignty which can never be undermined. And I say Nigeria as a state are also member to so many international organizations, for example, the United Nations, the African Union, the ICC, the ECOWAS, and the World Abuse and all that. And once you are a member of these international organizations, there's something that is also key. There are legal rules, policies, and frameworks which you have to also be keen into. And one thing that the public need to also understand is that there is no any member state that can actually undermine the sovereignty of another state. You know, we've heard the mere saying of a lot of people that say that the America is not in support of the incoming government, the UK, we do this, we do that, and all that. You know, we keep on also, talking as if that the president of America can never be, and will never be the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so versus every other country. So the respect have to be there, and there's something that's also key that we call about the bilateral relationship. Once that thing is established, so it is very difficult to see in another country, being putting that the agreement under under the cup, under the table. It has to also be observed and also be respected. So I will also correct the notion that whether this same international community were far away from Nigeria because of a certain individual on power. For example, you make reference to the President Muhammadu Buhari, maybe because he was in power. That is why some of them also, maybe stateless and what have you and all that. I don't think it's true, because I'm not saying you are lying, but I don't think certainly true, because I've seen the same president attended to so many international engagements, and recently he just came back, even from the regional summit of ECOWAS and the and all that. So yeah, be performing his duty incredibly well, and I'm sure that most of those international community and also Nigeria joined in the support that we were also getting, Nigeria. So I think, as you can see, there's no any embassy so far that said they left Nigeria because of the ruling party or the government in power and war affairs and all that. So the engagement within the current administration that is widening up with the international community are so cordial. And I also believe that the incoming administration will also build on what the existing policies and instruction, and also take it off from there.
All right, let's hope so. Just because you're a diplomat and you understand the international terrain, I'd still like to, dwell within this circle for just a little moment more. And why am I doing this? I'm doing this because the administration that is coming at hand, that's the administration of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is one with that is charged with a lot of responsibilities across different sectors. And one of those strategic sectors is the area of international relations, bilateral relationships with other nations of the world. As we speak at the moment, the world seems to be divided along quite a few lines. So maybe I should take it, because somehow we will have to talk about it. And that is the Russia war in Ukraine, or Russia-Ukraine war, and the United States trying to ensure, that the sovereignty of Ukraine is maintained in partnership with NATO countries and European unions and all of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially before the political seasons became intensified and we elected a leader, have been talking about the importance of Nigeria strategically aligning, with nations of interest that will be able to foster its economic growth and, drive technology and other important kind of relationship that a nation needs. So I'd like to ask you from this angle, if you were to advise the incoming president, on aligning with strategic nations across the world, especially with the turn of, event and how it is going at the moment, would you be advising that the incoming administration, takes side with the West against, those in, I don't know, the Central Europe, and you know what I'm talking about. The formation that is not yet clear, but of course, having Moscow, having Russia in the lead position.
When we are talking about diplomacy, it is very deep, and there is no way you can separate politics totally from diplomacy. And of course, there is international politics and diplomacy. And politics is all about diplomacy, and policy, and diplomacy is all about politics. In all of this, it's all about interests. Why I say that it's about interest is you don't support where your interest is not lying or where you are not getting anything at the end of the day. It will bottom down to Izuri for you. So it's depending on what has been placed on the table. And if you also look at this very clearly or closely, since the beginning of this war of Russia and Ukraine, you know that even Africa as a whole, not even Nigeria, have also tried to maintain on one side. I think it's gone at the day that African is coming to, the realization that the continent should be united, that it's not the continent that where we have to be used and dumb, so to use that language as it used to be in the past. So it's like we are coming out gradually. And I think with the new leaders, the emerging leaders that are coming out across the continent, I think gradually they are the leaders that can, come out boldly and put what they want on the table of the negotiation. And I see Aswaju as one of those leaders, which I know that can pave ways for that kind of leadership. You know what I mean? In the days of Obasanjo, there's no way they were talking about African leader. He had to be in the front. And for that reason, everything that belongs to Africa must also be given to Africa. And we are seeing somebody that can also fill that vacuum, because I know since the headset of President Olusegun Obasanjo, the former president of Africa, I can see the vacuum in the leadership that African has been produced. But with Bola Ahmed Aswaju coming on board, I think we are that kind of a leadership is being returned. And now, to speak more into this Russia-Ukraine, this is the late last year, from the beginning of this year, 2023, you will see that the United States of America, from the hierarchies of from the Secretary of State to the Secretary in charge of the Treasury, even to the Vice President of the America, that be, making the Africa to be their, visiting points where they are becoming regularly. You see that last month that even the Vice President himself visited about 3 countries in Africa. And someone will be wondering that why this visit or this why. And not only them, you also see the same Russia foreign minister also visited, I think in the last 2 times in the last 6 months to Africa. The Chinese counterpart is also doing the same thing. And someone that now can think deeply will be say, why this visit? I keep on telling people that Africa is now like a beautiful bride, that all the, or a lady that is due for marriage, a beautiful lady that all the handsome men, keep on now looking after. Cool. And then, before the lady can now say yes to any of those, guys coming around him, I have to first of all look at where that future can be secure. So that is the point that I keep on telling people. So in all of this, with Africa looking at what are they bringing on the table, where our own future will be secure. So not as in using Africa as a place to get what they want, and they now left us.
That's a very interesting point of view for us to look at things from, really, Dr. Tunji. Although I'm also wondering, I'm sure you're aware too, that South
Africa-Russia Summit.
Yes, at the African-Russia Summit, and South Africa, will receive President Vladimir Putin of Russia, in South Africa. I'm wondering, one of the controversies around that story is that a Russian president has been declared wanted. He's meant to be detained anywhere he goes to, where you have members of the United Nations, being situated. South Africa happens to be a critical part in Africa, representing Africa in the United Nations. A lot of people are questioning, are wondering, and I'm just going to put it straight to you. Do you think that there is any chance that South Africa will detain President Vladimir Putin when he visits later in June?
I don't think so, because the South Africa cannot act single-handedly without an instruction from African Union.
Okay.
I can say that though, you can say that the South Africa is also a state.
Sovereign
it's a
state.
sovereign, sovereign state. We also have the right to do whatever that we want to also do. But like I said initially, that the diplomacy is very deep in terms of politics. It could be a way of also drawing attention. That may be something that they're also negotiating. You know, when I say that the Africa that we are seeing today is not the Africa that we know yesterday. You know, the relationship between us and the Western people, they are still looking at us as, oh, those people that we colonize, they are our fingerprint. But we are trying to also let them know that it's no longer the same, the business as usual. Yes. How we wish that we have even realized this since decades ago. I think Africa will have moved from where we are into the next, you know, with a place where we don't have to even imagine. We also imagine the Western people that we are talking about. That, well, I'm nothing against them. But I also believe that the way they are looking at Africa is what I look as indirect slavery. Yes, they may say there is a human right. They say there can, you know, be physical assault and all that. But it's like a rope tying to someone that you now draw a limit, parameter that this is how far you can go. But I think the African have come to that, you know, senses that, no, we need to move, we need to go. So what happened to South Africa being negotiating this, I think they may have something to benefit more from Russia than any other, you know, at Western country. So there are a lot of things that have got. It's not today.
And you know, Doctor, so a lot of people are already beginning to get scared that may be, you know, a way of actually positioning Africa against the West, and especially when you consider all the aids and helps and grants that comes from Western nations. But that's, of course...
yes, I think that is where we are also missing it, because where you are still looking for the support of aid and you are relying on that, and that is more reason why we don't also, you know, what we have is even more than, we are even, the Africans are the one that's supposed to even be given his. Not we be receiving aid.
Most definitely, and that's the point right now. And I guess that's a very, very big task for the next round of African leaders to deal with. But I'm sure that going further in the conversation, we will be able to also touch some parts, especially where the incoming administration of President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu will be doing to reposition Nigeria as Africa's leader and represent Africa with a better perspective in the eyes of the world. We'll go on this short break. When we return, the conversation continues with my guest in the studio. Stay with us. Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is Politics Alive, reaching you live on our live television. I'm in the studios, of course, with Dr. John Tunji Ashalu, the Assistant Secretary General of the Institute of International Society of Diplomats, Africa region. We've been talking especially about how Africa positions with the rest of the world, and especially with the incoming administration of President-elect Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Dr. Tunji, I'm sure that this is a question you've been waiting for. Right now, as we speak in Nigeria, we are all awaiting the inauguration of a new administration. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu happens to be the winner of the February 25th presidential election, even though it has been challenged across many fronts. But it seems almost very sure that we have a new president come May 29th. And if he comes into power, I mean, the surrounding politics have also begun to show itself. That's talking about the selection of who will lead at the National Assembly. We all know how important it is for us to have a very vibrant and independent National Assembly. Before we go into the details and the rigors of who should emerge and where the president should come from, I think we should pick it up from this conversation, and I'd like to get your view straight away. How important is it for the legislature to actually be in consonance, to be in agreement with the executive and the judiciary, since we understand, of course, that the hierarchy is that we have the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, and each of these arms are supposed to be independent. How important is having the legislature as we currently have being in tandem with the executive, which the ruling All Progressives Party is actually trying to rally around?
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, the system that we run in Nigeria, the presidential system that we run in Nigeria is the presidential system of government, not the parliamentary system of government. I think the important is very germane because the power has been given, the executive seems that he has so much power into himself. And that is why you will see that even the National Assembly themselves have to wait even to the inauguration of even the Mr. President himself, which the Mr. President himself will not be the one to come back to come and inaugurate the National Assembly. So it's make it, look that the president or the executive has so much power in determining who should be the leader of the National Assembly. It's not merely that Mr. President had to even be the determiner, but I think the influence of Mr. President is also very, very important because all eyes are looking at that angle that what is Mr. President saying about this? Who is the anointed candidate of Mr. President?
And that's, Dr. Tunji, I'm sorry that I have to burgeon into the conversation or into allow you to land on your point. But that's the major reason why I'm asking this question. You see, a lot of people are saying, and I think going, by normal observation, we want each arm of government to be independent. Yes, and that's quite very instructive, especially when we consider the fact that the National Assembly, is a conglomeration of all political interests in the country. We have seen, at the declaration, at the acceptance speech of President-elect, he called for a government of unity, and I'm sure you remember that. And it seems as though that the National Assembly and every other arm of government under this incoming administration is already working toward that. I'm asking you again, isn't that a dangerous path, especially against the Nigerian people who will need an independent judiciary, need an independent executive, and an independent legislative arm to be able, to present their cases at different fronts?
Well, I think what I want you to also understand is, we have not dealt with this matter, but we are just touching at the periphery. I think the point that I want you and the general public to also understand is that, be as it may, Mr. President the President of Federal Republic of Nigeria is not the one presiding over the National Assembly. This National Assembly has their own leadership, which preside over the National Assembly. And of course, the President of the Senate is also the chairman of the National Assembly. So if we are saying that, are we not toiling on the dangerous path? How? Because Mr. President cannot leave the presidential villa. Why is supposed to be presiding over the Federal Executive Council and come and also be presiding over the
But you also agree with me. What we are talking about,
Dr. Tunji. What we are talking about.
Yeah, so you can answer it
is
in
a
one
rally
breath.
point.
So you can answer everything in one breath. Let me just put it together now. So you can answer it in one breath. So a lot of people say the National Assembly, the ninth National Assembly, was a rubber stamp National Assembly. That is, it was an assembly that only listened to whatever the presidency was bringing. And, of course, when you follow the speech of the Senate president at the time he was inaugurated, when he said, whatever the president brings, President Muhammadu Buhari brings, he will support. And you look at it now, across many fronts, Nigeria has a lot of challenges, especially when you look at our debt, that the ninth National Assembly never deny the president of going further to borrow more loans.
See, where you can't compare the two. You can't compare the current National Assembly with even the one that is even have gone the National Assembly. How many bills are they passed? Look at the achievement. You look at the achievement. We can't, the Nigeria is so, some of us is so advanced that we should be looking on the challenges alone. When we keep on looking at the challenges, how do we provide solutions? And I'm sure that where you put the challenges and the solutions that are being provided and you weigh it, it is when when the challenges is over the solution, that is why you can also be talking about. Even in our own family, are there not any challenges? Are there not any difficulties? Yes, as a man or as a man of the farm, of the house, you make sure that all those things is being met. When you look at the achievements of this current National Assembly and how many bills that they have been passed, I think you should also give them kudos. Because it has never been in the history of Nigeria that even the bill of the PIB, which is being then that also put them into consideration to even the president to make them to accept, to the president to accede to it.
And that's because the president refused to assent to it in the 8th Assembly.
Because of the relations, what happened? Something that has also gone on. Even the electoral has amended. We walk over it. It's still the same correct leadership assembly. If you are to say anything that Mr. President be, as long that it's in the is of good idea with the citizen, that is the statement, not as anything Mr. President be will pass. I think the statement is that whatever that Mr. President brings to us, as long as it's in the interest of Nigeria and Nigerians, then they will put it to consideration. And that has been to me, I'm not part of them, but that has been what I think that have been the business of the day. So to me, I think we should also give kudos to them. However, it's not the Mr. President that will pick the national, that will elect the leadership of the National Assembly. The leadership of the National Assembly are elect, they have their own standing order. They have their rules that guide the process of how to also elect the leadership. But the truth of the matter is, a ruling party must be the one to produce the leadership. It has always been. I think I also have the conversations of even the governor's wiki. When he was even telling the opposition, when they said they are forming group that they don't want to elect, he said, it's not about done, they shouldn't take that rule. So perhaps you may also be thinking that it's a Mr. President. It may not also even be the Mr. President that actually influences this, but the party too also have their own rules. It's the party that do the zoning.
Okay.
It's the party that say, okay, so the zoning must be to be this.
So, Dr.
To be this.
I think it's quite interesting. I must say, because this is a conversation that is ongoing, that has begun for a while now, and I'm not sure it's something that we can actually solve in one breath, in this conversation. However, I'd like us to, hinge on some of the most current issues. Some of the most current issues will be where the Senate president will emerge from. Throughout last week, news made the round. We got it. We got first-hand information that the president-elect, had given a nod to former governor of Akwa Ibom State and former minority leader in the House, talking about Godswill Akpabio. And of course, a lot of people said, that sounds like a nice move. I mean, talking about his experience as a governor and all of that, he would be able to understand, the standing rules of the Senate, like you said. And then just, over the weekend, and again, we have the Senate president, the current Senate president, Ahmed Lawan, standing against, Senator Godswill Akpabio, with different reasons, by the way. But he feels that it should go to Oshomole, who was the former national chairman of the party. While we still have that, we also have the like of Asari Dokubo coming out to say, look, this time around, the Senate presidency should be zoned to the southeast. We felt that they needed to be president, we couldn't give them presidency. And if we can't get them presidency, we should at least be able to give them Senate presidency. I mean, so all of these conversations are on the table. I'd like to get, your views to these conversations and where you think, ideally, the next Senate president and leadership of the National Assembly should be coming from.
I think, first of all, what we need to understand, for us to understand is the leadership shouldn't be about settlement. Well, we are, putting settlement to this, then we keep on producing the kind of leadership that have not been able to solve issues. I think Nigerians have undergone a lot of crises that we're not supposed to make it get worse. We should be looking at how to come out of all this mess that where we are finding ourselves today. And to come out of this mess, it is where we have required the competent leader, which have actually, take us out of this mess. And if we are looking at that direction, then we should be looking at the competencies, we should be looking at the experiences, we should also be looking at the capacity. I think that is what the president-elect is actually also talking about. And away from this, where we are also looking at the political and regional balances, especially as where we are as of today, where the president-elect is a Muslim and the vice president-elect also is also a Muslim. I think we should also be looking first of all, those that will take the number 3 position to also be a Christian. That is one. And secondly, where you look at the highest of politics, the way the politics also shown their leadership is different from the way we also look at it. Those of us that were outside those sectors, we look at we're thinking about geopolitical zone. And as it is in Nigeria now, we have this geopolitical zone. But the hearts of the politics, they zone it north and south. So if the southern people are producing president, the northern people are producing vice president. So where we have to now look at it, it mustn't be east, it mustn't be south. Because when you are looking at the east and the south, they are still part of even the south that have actually also produced president. But however, for the sake of the regional equitable distributions, which you have to also observe the federal correct and equity, we are looking at where you are looking at that content of Christianity. And that is why people are narrowing down to the southeast or the south-south, because that is where you can get that merit of what you are looking out for. So if you are also looking at that, I will also stand on the school of thought that said the presidency of the Senate should either be zoned to the southeast or to the south-south, which is what is currently even going right now.
Well, there are a lot of people, who will be contending, even if it is zoned to the south. Like you say, if we talk about the south, then you talk about Senator Izuna, so you talk about Senate Chief Whip, Orji Zokalu, former governor of Abia State. And then, of course, you're now talking about Senator Godswill Akpabio from Akwa Ibom, and a few others, who have shown interest in emerging. And, of course, the APC former national chairman, former governor of Edo State, Adams Oshiomhole, is also on the queue. And, that became very interesting, especially because someone like Adams Oshiomhole is a first-timer in the National Assembly. So a lot of people are saying, well, if someone is going to be able to contest the position of Senate President, then he should be someone who has experience, proven experience that, can be checked. He has to be a ranking member of the Senate.
That is what the rule says.
And so, and then he's showing up. So a lot of people are saying, well, this is a reflection of, influence within parties and within the party, and how each of them will be able to come out. Or let me just simply say, somebody said, well, what would determine who emerges as the Senate president, in this entire race, would be the person that is politically strong enough, within the political party, and has the ties, to be able to relate with the presidency and relate with other stakeholders within the Nigerian Senate. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I have nothing against Adams Oshiomhole. There's someone of the leader that I respect so much, and I think having it as a Senate president will be a plus, even to Nigerians and to Nigerians as a whole, even to the ruling party. But I also have my own intake. The rule that specifies how who should emerge as the Senate president or even the Speaker of the House of Representatives. But in this context, let's narrow it down to the Senate. I think it's about on the three categories. We say the first category talk about the ranking senator, and that ranking senator talk about before you can be regarded as a ranking senator, you must have been a current serving senator, returned back again, maybe like a 2-3 times consecutively,
Remember.
without a breakdown. So that is what make you to be a ranking senator, not a senator today. Maybe in another, the position you are not elected, then you come back again. You are no longer a ranking senator. You have to start again. So that is the category 1. Is Adam Osimole a ranking senator? Does it meet that requirement? Even the HAPA bill we are talking about, does it meet that requirement? I think it's a question that we need to also answer ourselves. The second category is also about ranking. Not necessarily that you are being elected consecutively in the Senate. Maybe perhaps you are being a member of the House of Representatives and you now cross to the National Assembly. They still regard you as a ranking members that have the experience of the Senate. You can also be considered. However, coming in as a fresh candidate, as long as you are also a member of the Senate, and I'm also sure that you are also qualified, to aspire for whatever the position I say you want to also aspire for. I have seen a first-timer senator that also become not even principal member, at least a chairman of some committees. So consideration can also be given. So what I'm saying in the nonsense is competency, the ability to also rally around, like you said, to unite the people together, not to break, the house, how to put them together for the interest of Nigerians, not for their own personal interest alone. So to me, I've seen all of them. If it's time of competency, the Adam Osimole is competent, the Apabio is competent, the Ojo Sokalu is also competent. So I see competence in all of this, in all of them, but the other requirement is what we should also be looking at. And when you also look at them too, I think Adam Osimole is also a Christian too. I don't know. He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim. So for me, if he's a Muslim, I think he needs to also respect even the Nigeria and the system as a whole.
All right.
Just allowed.
I wish we had more time to be able to, exhaust all the issues around the National Assembly at the moment, but we can't. But I can't have a conversation with you without talking about youth, because I know that you are the first president of African Youth International Development Foundation, AFIDEF, and all the other organizations. So a new administration has come, and I'm sure you can relate with some of the challenges, that youth in Nigeria especially, and in Africa in general, went through in the past administration. How much prospect do you see youth developments getting and having in the incoming administration of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
Yeah, I think the man have made a lot of promise. If you see, if we look at critically as his manifesto, he have put a lot of programs, developmental program that is actually targeting youth, even to the extent that even those that couldn't go to school, he has also made a promise of education loans that will also be made available to them. But the one thing that I've also said about this is I've looked at the even transition committee, and I know that there's a lot of even gap there, and the gap that is also missing there is there is no even representative of the youth and even the women. So in all the programs, I think women and the youth is not being carried on, which ought not to be so.
When you talk about that, sorry, I have to interject. The former commissioner for health in Cross River State, talking about the national woman leader of the party right now, is in that committee.
Yes, not represented in a capacity of serving as, I think, in a committee of medical. I guess serving is in that capacity is not serving in the capacity of a youth representative. However, there is no any problem about that. What I'm just saying is that even the youth have not actually positioned themselves as someone that is expecting so much even from the government, in as much that even the president elect has so much, giving a lot of promises that should have also raised their hope. How ready are they? What I'm saying about them is they have so much segment themselves into a fracture that seem not giving weight to them, rather than for them to bring them out, to bring themselves out from where they actually kept themselves into the landline. That you have to make yourself available. like just like it says in Yoruba land that "Ọmọ tó bá sípá, onúbẹ̀ máa gbé." So if you have to raise your hand to say yes, you are ready to also be part of this, and I think they will welcome you. But in as much as what we can say, can assure you, and I know that the government of incoming government, the government of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, we have a lot to offer for Nigeria youth. So my advice for them is for them to make themselves available for that opportunity that actually come on their ways.
All right, Dr. Tunji Ashaolu, thank you so much for your time on the show. It's been a wonderful conversation with you.
Thank you once again for having me.
I'm wondering, though, if Dr. Ashaolu's submission about youth readiness, I wonder if youth out there really do agree. Are the youth actually ready? So this is a direct question to you, Nigerian youth. Are you ready? Are you well positioned, to take your place in the incoming administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, president-elect of the country? Well, that's a question that we have to find answers to, and I hope that finding answers to this question will determine the next direction where youth will gain attention in the incoming administration. Well, this is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of Politics Alive. It's been a wonderful conversation with you. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'll come your way again next time with more interesting subjects of national discourse. Till then, keep watching Politics Alive, and this is Alive Television.